It was supposed to be just another polished appearance on late-night television, a moment of charm, laughter, and polite applause under the studio lights. But what unfolded that evening on Seth Meyers' stage would rip through the glossy facade of celebrity culture like a dagger. And right at the center of that storm stood two women, one who's been chasing the crown, and another who never wanted it, but spoke like a queen. The night Danielle Brooks confronted the illusion of royalty wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a full-scale collision of authenticity and pretense. From the moment Danielle stepped on stage, the energy shifted. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic in the traditional sense, but it was powerful. She didn't have to raise her voice to make a statement. In fact, it was the quiet fire in her tone, the unflinching gaze, and the subtle but piercing remarks that shook the room to its core. And though Meghan Markle's name wasn't explicitly spoken at that pivotal moment, the subtext was thunderously clear. It didn't need to be spelled out. Every viewer watching at home, every producer backstage, and every stunned guest in the audience knew exactly who Danielle was talking about when she dropped the words, "Some people wear crowns they didn't earn." Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. To grasp the weight of that moment, we have to go back a bit, to the months, even years, of tension simmering beneath the surface. Meghan Markle, once celebrated as a modern-day fairy tale princess, has been navigating the treacherous waters of public opinion with an increasingly fragile ship. After stepping back from royal duties, launching explosive interviews, and dabbling in various Hollywood ventures with varying degrees of success, her public image has become less about grace and more about calculation. There's a growing sentiment, especially in Hollywood and certain activist circles, that Meghan has turned victimhood into a personal brand, one that selectively leverages race, royalty, and feminism depending on the audience. Danielle Brooks, on the other hand, couldn't be more different. She's not royalty. She's not married into aristocracy. She didn't sit down with Oprah to tell the world her story. She lived it through years of grinding, struggling, and rising up with raw talent and unwavering integrity. From her breakout role in Orange is the New Black to her Tony-nominated performance on Broadway, Danielle has carved her place in the industry not by presenting a curated narrative, but by being relentlessly, almost brutally, herself. So when these two women found themselves indirectly connected in a moment of media spectacle, the tension was electric. Danielle was invited to Late Night with Seth Meyers to promote a new project, a powerful biographical film that touched on race, identity, and the importance of staying grounded. Meghan, not officially a guest that evening, was reportedly in the studio complex, according to several behind-the-scenes reports. She had apparently reached out for a quiet photo opportunity with Danielle, perhaps in an attempt to align herself with the acclaimed actress and bolster her own public persona. What she got, instead, was a cultural slap that reverberated around the globe. This wasn't just a TV moment gone viral. This was deeper. This was a reckoning. But let's pause for a second. Why would Meghan Markle, a global figure, married into the most powerful monarchy on earth, someone who sat in palaces and presidential mansions, be so desperate to share a red carpet flashbulb with Danielle Brooks? The answer may lie in the growing fracture between perception and reality. Meghan's brand, once buoyed by her royal title, has been sinking under the weight of too many staged appearances, too many carefully worded statements, and too few authentic moments. While she has certainly drawn support from fans and media outlets who view her as a modern woman challenging outdated institutions, others, including many in Hollywood, have begun to view her with skepticism. The whispers are growing louder. Is the Duchess title just a costume? Has Meghan been playing both sides, the victim and the star, the rebel and the queen? Danielle, conversely, represents something that's becoming increasingly rare in a media-saturated world: realness. She speaks without a script, listens without waiting for applause, and carries herself not with royal entitlement, but with earned pride. So when she took that seat across from Seth Meyers and the conversation drifted into the performative side of activism and celebrity, she didn't hold back. Danielle said, and we quote, "I think there's a difference between fighting for something and selling something. And a lot of people out here, they're selling us a brand of struggle that ain't even theirs." The air went still. Even Seth Meyers, known for his comedic timing and quick wit, paused as the gravity of her words settled in. You could see it in his eyes, the realization that this wasn't your typical celebrity fluff segment. Danielle wasn't promoting, she was exposing. And somewhere backstage, according to several eyewitness accounts, Meghan Markle was watching the segment from a private monitor. The woman who had spent the past few years carefully crafting her image, from palace halls to podcast studios, was now having that very image dismantled with a few piercing sentences. And then came the phrase that lit up every social media feed within minutes. You can't just marry into royalty and think that gives you the right to speak for the rest of us. Some people wear crowns they didn't earn. There it was. No name, no direct shot, but an arrow straight through the heart of Meghan's public persona. The studio audience didn't know whether to clap or gasp. Some did both. Others simply watched in stunned silence. And backstage, sources say, Meghan Markle stood up and quietly left the green room. No exit press, no selfies, no follow-up interviews. Just silence. But the internet wasn't silent. Twitter exploded. TikTok creators dissected every frame of Danielle's interview, while Reddit threads speculated on Meghan's reaction. Headlines the next morning were merciless. One tabloid screamed, "Danielle Brooks dethrones the Duchess." Others were more analytical, calling it a cultural moment of reckoning between earned visibility and borrowed prestige. This wasn't about two women. It was about something bigger, a battle of values. On one side, Danielle Brooks, standing as a symbol of authenticity, hard work, and unfiltered truth. On the other, Meghan Markle, emblem of curated royalty, privilege cloaked in protest, and public image driven by control. But here's the thing, this wasn't a feud. Danielle wasn't gunning for Meghan. There was no pre-written hit job, no orchestrated takedown. What made her words land so powerfully is that they weren't aimed. They were truths simply spoken out loud. And in that truth, millions of people found something they hadn't seen in a long time, a voice that cut through the noise. As the episode continued, Danielle moved on to other topics. Her film, her activism, her hopes for young black women trying to break into the industry. But the weight of her earlier comments lingered like smoke in the air. When the credits rolled, viewers weren't talking about box office numbers or scripts. They were talking about royalty and what happens when the illusion finally shatters. And so, in this video, we are going to take you deep behind the scenes of this cultural earthquake. From the days leading up to that taping to the real-time reactions of Hollywood insiders, to the way this one moment could permanently shift the way Meghan Markle is viewed not just by the public, but by the very circles she's been trying to re-enter. We'll explore why Danielle's words hit so hard, and why Meghan, for all her rehearsed composure, couldn't offer a response. We'll dig into the politics of fame, the burden of representation, and the thin line between using your voice and selling your narrative. And by the time we reach the end, you'll know more than what happened on that late-night stage. You'll understand why it happened, what it exposed, and why sometimes the most powerful voices are the ones that don't whisper behind palace doors, but speak boldly from a studio couch. This isn't just a story about Danielle and Meghan. It's a story about the end of pretending and the beginning of something real. The drama didn't erupt in a vacuum. It had been brewing quietly, like a kettle just below boiling point. And by the time Danielle Brooks sat across from Seth Meyers and delivered those unforgettable lines, the tension between authenticity and performance had reached its peak. But to truly grasp the magnitude of that single televised moment, we need to rewind the clock, past the night of the taping, past the whispered rumors, and back into the complicated landscape that brought these two women onto an invisible collision course. It began with Meghan Markle's calculated re-entry into Hollywood. After a series of missteps and controversial public moments, most notably her exit from royal duties with Prince Harry, the infamous Oprah interview, and a polarizing docuseries, Meghan's team was eager to reshape her narrative. Gone was the royal rebel wrapped in a cloak of royal titles. Now, she wanted to return to her roots as a creative, a humanitarian, and most importantly, a beloved public figure in Hollywood. But there was a problem. The Hollywood Meghan left behind was not the one she was re-entering. It was colder, more discerning, and not as easily seduced by shiny titles. In the years since her departure, the entertainment world had shifted. Authenticity was no longer optional, it was currency. And Meghan, for all her polish, was quickly finding herself bankrupt in that department. Behind closed doors, insiders whispered that the Sussex brand was hemorrhaging cultural capital. Despite lavish deals with Netflix and Spotify, audience numbers failed to meet expectations. Her Archetypes podcast, once touted as a vehicle for empowering women, had quietly fizzled out. Public interest in Meghan and Harry had waned not because their story wasn't compelling, but because people began to feel it was rehearsed. Enter Danielle Brooks. Danielle had no crown, no title, no billion-dollar wedding watched by the world. What she had was grit, talent, and a soul that could move mountains. Rising from South Carolina, she built her career on the strength of her performances and the truth in her voice. Audiences knew her not just as Tasty from Orange is the New Black, but as a woman who had walked the path, not inherited it. Where Meghan often seemed like she was performing sincerity, Danielle exuded it. And that difference, though subtle at first glance, was seismic in Hollywood's evolving climate. Producers, agents, publicists, they could all feel it. And when Danielle's new film, an emotionally raw biopic about a civil rights hero, started making the rounds in early awards chatter, her stock skyrocketed. Meghan noticed. Or rather, her PR team did. Whispers began circulating that Meghan's handlers were looking to align her with rising black actresses, women with integrity and community credibility. Not because Meghan sought their counsel, necessarily, but because standing beside them in photos could quietly transfer a bit of their authenticity back onto her. And so, Meghan's team reached out to Danielle's representatives. Not directly, of course. It was framed as a potential collaboration, perhaps a joint panel discussion on black female empowerment, or a podcast episode exploring shared journeys in Hollywood. But behind the polite pitch was a desperate attempt to borrow the unfiltered glow that Danielle naturally radiated. Danielle didn't bite. There was no formal rejection, no public shade, no scandal. Just a quiet decline. Her team responded with scheduling conflicts, other commitments. But the message behind it was unmistakable. Danielle had no interest in being anyone's prop. Meanwhile, late-night shows were being booked for winter promo runs, and both women found themselves on Seth Meyers' radar for very different reasons. Danielle, for her critically acclaimed film. Meghan, reportedly, as a potential guest for an upcoming episode promoting a new initiative through Archewell, something designed to recast her image in a softer, more community-driven light. The producers hadn't confirmed a date, but Meghan was said to be in preliminary talks. Then, seemingly by coincidence, or perhaps as a calculated opportunity, word got out that Meghan would be on set at NBC Studios the same night Danielle was scheduled to appear. Not booked on the show, just present. No one publicly confirmed whether she was there for business, a meeting, or simply to make herself visible. But multiple insiders say she was spotted backstage, dressed down, but unmistakably Meghan. Rumors suggest she was hoping to arrange a brief private interaction with Danielle, maybe even a friendly photo opportunity. If she could get just one snapshot of the two women together, maybe standing in solidarity, smiling in mutual admiration, it could change the narrative. But Danielle wasn't interested in changing narratives that weren't hers. In private, those close to Danielle say she found the idea offensive. The very suggestion that her platform, earned through sweat, tears, and long nights in off-Broadway theaters, could be used to bolster someone else's faltering image didn't sit right with her. Especially when that someone had spent the better part of her public life entangling privilege with victimhood, using race and royalty like interchangeable poker chips in the game of public sympathy. It's not that Danielle had a vendetta. She wasn't angry. She wasn't plotting. She just saw through the pageantry. The producers of Seth Meyers' show reportedly caught wind of the awkward behind-the-scenes setup and tried to keep the two women apart. Meghan was escorted into a private green room. Danielle was given a separate space altogether. No shared areas, no chance encounters. Or so they thought. Some crew members later claimed that Danielle saw Meghan for just a moment, long enough to offer a curt nod before continuing down the hallway. No smiles, no hugs, no eager selfies. Just acknowledgement. And that brief, quiet moment was enough. Because that night, when the stage lights came on and Seth Meyers welcomed Danielle onto his couch, she carried with her the full weight of that unsaid tension. It wasn't rehearsed rage. It was something deeper, a simmering resistance to the cultural hijacking of lived experience. Their conversation began light, as most do. Jokes about Danielle's role, behind-the-scenes anecdotes, a few laughs. But then, about midway through the segment, Seth asked a seemingly innocuous question. "You've been very vocal about the difference between representation and appropriation. What's that been like in Hollywood?" Danielle paused, the kind of pause that makes everyone lean in. And then she said, "I think there's a fine line between amplifying stories that matter and inserting yourself into stories that don't belong to you. Some people think wearing a crown gives them the right to speak for the rest of us. But that crown, that's just metal. It doesn't make you real." Seth blinked. The audience froze. It was the kind of statement that didn't need follow-up. You could feel the air in the room shift. And backstage, Meghan, still watching, still waiting, allegedly got up and walked out before the segment ended. It was the build-up to a moment that would ripple across social platforms, media cycles, and public consciousness for days. But it wasn't the words alone that carried such weight. It was everything behind them. The unspoken history, the rejection of performative solidarity, the refusal to co-sign a narrative that wasn't earned. Danielle Brooks wasn't trying to destroy Meghan Markle. She was simply choosing not to elevate her. And in a culture where silence is often more damning than outrage, that choice was deafening. Hollywood is a land of dreams and reinvention, a place where even the most tarnished stars can polish their image, if only the shimmer is authentic enough. For Meghan Markle, returning to this glittering world after her high-profile exit from the British royal family should have been a triumphant homecoming. But the reality was far colder, far more complex. Beneath the camera flashes and perfectly curated Instagram posts lurked a growing skepticism that Meghan's reinvention was less a fresh start and more a carefully engineered comeback, one that Hollywood insiders viewed with suspicion. Meghan's relationship with Hollywood had always been complicated. Before she became a Duchess, Meghan was an actress with moderate success, known for roles on TV shows like Suits and a handful of smaller film parts. She was neither a Hollywood darling nor a complete outsider. Someone in the industry, but not one of its true insiders. Her marriage into the royal family changed all that. Overnight, she became global royalty with access to every red carpet, gala, and exclusive circle imaginable. But with that elevation came a different kind of scrutiny, the kind that Hollywood, in its ruthless way, both embraces and rejects. When Meghan stepped back from royal duties, many expected her to make a seamless transition into the entertainment world as a powerful figure, philanthropist, actress, producer, and influencer. But behind the scenes, the welcome mat was less inviting than the public had been led to believe. Multiple sources within the industry have since revealed that Meghan was seen as a calculated outsider, someone whose image was polished but whose authenticity was questioned. One insider confided, "Meghan's name opened doors, but it didn't open hearts. People respect talent and humility here. Titles alone don't buy you that." This sentiment echoed in several corners of the industry, where Meghan's high-profile projects met with mixed reviews, and her appearances sometimes felt staged rather than spontaneous. Publicists and image consultants were working overtime to smooth over moments that could be perceived as awkward or rehearsed. The Archwell Foundation, which was initially hailed as a vehicle for meaningful social change, faced repeated accusations of being more about branding than impact. High-profile charity events saw Meghan navigating carefully scripted speeches and photo ops, but behind the scenes, conversations were less flattering. Industry veterans described tense moments where Meghan appeared more focused on optics than genuine connection. One event planner who worked closely with Meghan's team remarked, "There's a disconnect. It's like she's always playing a role rather than just being herself." People pick up on that energy, especially in Hollywood. Even attempts to build bridges with influential Black women in the entertainment world proved challenging. Meghan's outreach, while frequent, was met with hesitation. Some viewed her as using racial identity as a shield or a tool rather than embracing the community with sincerity. Others respected her position but remained wary of the mixed signals she sent. This chilly reception only intensified Meghan's need to associate herself with powerful figures who embodied authenticity and hard-earned respect. Danielle Brooks fit that profile perfectly, an actress respected for her craft, her outspoken activism, and her refusal to compromise her values for the sake of fame. Despite these attempts at rapprochement, Meghan's public appearances grew increasingly isolated. Several events saw her arriving without familiar Hollywood friends or advocates. Invitations to elite parties were rumored to be rescinded or quietly ignored. The social media landscape, once bustling with supportive posts, started featuring more critical commentary. All of this set the stage for what many now call the moment of reckoning on Late Night with Seth Meyers. But before Danielle's blunt critique, Meghan's image team was actively trying to rewrite the narrative. They pitched new projects aimed at highlighting her authentic self, documentaries, podcasts, and partnerships designed to showcase Meghan's work ethic and down-to-earth personality. However, leaked memos obtained by certain outlets suggest that internal confidence in these projects was shaky at best. One leaked internal email read, "We need to shift the perception from royal diva to relatable advocate. It's crucial for long-term brand viability." Yet, as these strategies were being drafted, the core issue remained unresolved: public and industry perception of Meghan's authenticity. This tension wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. Sources close to Meghan have shared that the pressure to maintain a flawless image, especially after years under royal scrutiny, was taking a toll. The constant balancing act of representing herself as both a royal and a relatable figure led to moments of visible strain. Staff reported increased anxiety around public appearances and heightened sensitivity to media narratives. In this atmosphere, every interview, every appearance became a test of her ability to control the narrative, a test that, many would argue, she was increasingly failing. Meanwhile, Danielle Brooks was quietly building her reputation as someone unafraid to speak uncomfortable truths. Friends and collaborators described her as grounded, approachable, and refreshingly candid. She never sought the spotlight for the sake of ego. Instead, her light shone brightest when telling stories that mattered and calling out hypocrisy when she saw it. The stark contrast between Danielle's rising star and Meghan's faltering glow became a symbol of the shifting tides in Hollywood. Authenticity, raw and unfiltered, was becoming the new currency, and Meghan's carefully managed brand was struggling to keep up. As tensions rose and media buzz intensified, the stage was set for the encounter that would send shockwaves through both Hollywood and the royal narrative. When Meghan reportedly reached out to Danielle's team, it was more than a social gesture. It was an attempt to tap into the very authenticity that eluded her. But Danielle's refusal sent a clear message. Authenticity can't be borrowed, and it certainly can't be rented. In the end, the chilliness Meghan experienced in Hollywood wasn't just about status or fame. It was about truth. And the truth, as it turned out, had a powerful advocate ready to speak it aloud. The night of the taping was thick with anticipation, though no one in the audience could have predicted what would unfold. Backstage at NBC Studios, behind the velvet curtains and gleaming lights of Late Night with Seth Meyers, a subtle but electric tension crackled in the air. It was a tension born not of hostility or drama for drama's sake, but of unspoken history and competing energies converging under one roof. The green room, a place typically reserved for casual chats, rehearsals, and last-minute nerves, became the setting for a collision that no one wanted to see, but everyone could feel. Danielle Brooks arrived first, calm but focused. Sources say she was warmly greeted by the production crew and fellow guests, her presence commanding without demanding. She was preparing for her segment, going over notes and stretching her vocal cords, as is routine. There was an aura about her, an unshakable confidence rooted in years of hard work and authenticity. Moments later, Meghan Markle made her entrance. Unlike Danielle's understated arrival, Meghan's was marked by the soft flutter of cameras and whispers among the staff. She was dressed in a muted, yet unmistakably elegant ensemble, carefully chosen to strike a balance between royalty and relatability. Her expression was guarded, perhaps reflecting the weight of public scrutiny she carried like a second skin. Backstage eyewitnesses have described the atmosphere as uneasy, charged, and uncomfortably quiet. A source close to the production crew revealed that Meghan's aides made last-minute requests to arrange a casual meet-and-greet with Danielle before filming, hoping to create a moment of camaraderie that could later be leveraged for positive publicity. According to multiple accounts, Meghan attempted to approach Danielle in the green room, extending a hand and offering a polite smile. But Danielle, aware of the optics and unwilling to engage in a public relations stunt, kept her distance. Instead of reciprocating, she nodded briefly and excused herself, moving toward the makeup chair. The encounter reportedly lasted no more than 30 seconds, but left a palpable chill. One crew member recalled the exchange vividly. It wasn't hostile. No harsh words or drama. But there was a clear message. Danielle wasn't going to be part of any narrative that felt forced or disingenuous. It was like she was saying, "I'm not here for the photo ops or the image fixes." After this brief moment, Meghan reportedly withdrew to a private lounge area reserved for high-profile guests, her expression unreadable. Meanwhile, Danielle continued preparing, unaware that her words on stage would soon ignite a cultural firestorm. As the show began taping, tension lingered just out of sight. The audience, captivated by the usual mix of humor and celebrity chatter, had no idea that backstage, lines were being drawn, not with words, but with presence. When Seth Meyers welcomed Danielle onto the iconic late-night couch, the mood shifted. What started as a typical interview quickly became an unfiltered conversation about authenticity, celebrity culture, and the cost of wearing titles that don't align with lived experience. Danielle spoke openly about the importance of truth in storytelling, how the industry often favors appearance over substance, and how some figures capitalize on identities and titles without fully embracing the responsibility they entail. Her tone was firm but measured, peppered with dry wit and heartfelt conviction. It was during this segment that Danielle dropped the phrase that would dominate headlines. "Some people wear crowns they didn't earn." The silence that followed was deafening. Cameras cut to Seth Meyers, who briefly faltered before steering the conversation forward. The live audience, sensing the gravity beneath the words, shifted in their seats, some exchanging glances, others whispering softly. Backstage, Meghan's aides reportedly exchanged nervous looks. According to sources, Meghan herself was watching the segment unfold on a monitor, her face tight with discomfort. After Danielle's words, production staff say Meghan stood abruptly and left the green room without making the customary post-show appearances or taking questions from the press. She exited the building through a side door, avoiding photographers and reporters waiting outside. This sudden departure only fueled speculation and rumors, quickly spreading across social media and news outlets. What many didn't realize at the time was that this was not a spontaneous outburst by Danielle. It was the culmination of months, if not years, of tension, rejection, and a growing divide between two very different figures navigating the intersecting worlds of fame, identity, and influence. In the hours following the show, as clips circulated online and social media exploded, the backstage dynamics came under scrutiny. Journalists and insiders began piecing together the story behind the scenes: the rejected handshake, the cold nod, the abrupt exit. Some commentators framed Danielle's refusal as a bold stand for authenticity. Others viewed it as a missed opportunity for solidarity among women of color in an industry rife with challenges. Meanwhile, Meghan's quiet withdrawal was interpreted by some as a sign of vulnerability and by others as avoidance. As the night wore on, it became clear that this was more than a late-night interview gone off script. It was a cultural flashpoint highlighting the complex intersections of race, royalty, celebrity, and the hunger for genuine representation. The tension in the green room was not merely physical space. It was symbolic of a broader battle being waged on public stages and social media feeds worldwide. Danielle Brooks had chosen to speak truths that many felt but few dared to voice. Meghan Markle, caught between worlds and expectations, was forced to reckon with the cost of her carefully managed image. This night, the divide between them became impossible to ignore. As the cameras rolled and the studio lights bathed the late night, with Seth Meyers' stage in their usual warm glow, Danielle Brooks was ready to deliver more than just another interview. This wasn't just a promotional appearance. It was a moment loaded with the weight of personal conviction and cultural significance. From the outset, the conversation between Danielle and Seth seemed like a standard late-night dialogue. They chatted about Danielle's latest projects, her journey as an actress, and the challenges of navigating Hollywood. The tone was casual, light-hearted even, until the dialogue began to veer into the territory of celebrity culture and the authenticity it often lacks. Seth, known for his sharp wit and ease with guests, asked a question that seemed innocent but opened the floodgates. In this era of performative activism and curated personas, how do you stay true to yourself? How do you tell the difference between those genuinely fighting for change and those who might be selling something else? Danielle's pause was brief, but the depth in her eyes told the audience this was a topic close to her heart. She responded with a calm, steady voice. I think it comes down to what you carry when the cameras stop rolling. Real authenticity isn't about flashing titles or wearing crowns that others gave you. It's about the struggles you've lived, the truths you're willing to face, and the voices you choose to amplify, even when it's uncomfortable. Her words hung in the air like a challenge. The audience leaned in, sensing that there was more beneath the surface. Danielle continued, weaving a narrative that was as much a personal testament as it was a cultural critique. In Hollywood, we see a lot of people trying to claim spaces they haven't earned, or stories that aren't theirs to tell. It's like a masquerade ball, everyone wearing masks, hoping no one notices. But eventually, those masks slip, and when they do, the truth shines through. Then came the moment that exploded across social media. Danielle said, without hesitation or apology, some people wear crowns they didn't earn. They think a title gives them the right to speak for everyone else. But that crown? It's just metal. It doesn't make you real. The studio audience gasped. Some clapped. Others sat stunned. Seth's smile faltered for a split second before he smoothly transitioned to the next question, but the impact was undeniable. At that moment, millions watching at home caught the subtext loud and clear. Though Danielle never mentioned Meghan Markle by name, the illusion was unmistakable. The phrase, fake Duchess, began to trend on social media within minutes, with countless viewers interpreting Danielle's statement as a direct critique of Meghan's claim to royalty and public influence. Inside the studio, the atmosphere was electric yet tense. Behind the cameras, production staff scrambled to assess the fallout of Danielle's bold words. Seth Meyers himself reportedly consulted with producers during a brief break, concerned about the sharpness of Danielle's critique in the context of Meghan's rumored presence backstage. Meanwhile, sources reveal that Meghan was watching the interview from a private monitor in the green room. Her reaction was one of visible discomfort, her face tightening, lips pressing together, eyes flickering with a mix of surprise and unease. For someone accustomed to controlling her narrative, this unexpected call-out was a rare public jab that could not be easily sidestepped. But what made Danielle's moment so striking was not just the critique itself, it was the courage behind it. In an industry where politeness often masks real feelings, Danielle's refusal to dance around uncomfortable truths was a refreshing, if disruptive, force. She did not hesitate to name the problem without playing victim. She acknowledged the complexity of celebrity and power while calling out the dissonance between image and reality. Her words resonated with many who had long felt that public figures like Meghan used titles and carefully managed narratives to shield themselves from accountability. Media outlets immediately picked up on the tension, analyzing the segment frame by frame. One prominent entertainment journalist wrote, Danielle Brooks has become the unlikely voice challenging the carefully constructed myth of Meghan Markle's royal persona. Her words cut through layers of image management to reveal the deeper questions about identity, privilege, and authenticity. Social media users echoed this sentiment, with many praising Danielle for speaking truth to power. Fans created memes and videos highlighting the fake Duchess moment, fueling a wave of public debate about Meghan's role in both Hollywood and the royal family. This viral sensation was not without controversy. Critics argued that Danielle's words were unnecessarily harsh and potentially damaging. Some accused her of launching a personal attack, questioning whether it was fair to critique someone who has faced intense public scrutiny herself. Others suggested the moment was orchestrated for publicity. Yet, Danielle herself never clarified or apologized. In subsequent interviews, she maintained a stance of principled honesty, emphasizing the importance of authenticity over image. Her refusal to back down only deepened public fascination with the moment. Behind the scenes, producers of Late Night with Seth Meyers reportedly debated whether to include a segment addressing the fallout or inviting Meghan to respond. Those discussions never materialized on air. Instead, the night's broadcast ended with Danielle's candidness as its defining feature. For Meghan Markle, the impact was immediate and palpable. Reports surfaced that her aides attempted to arrange damage control, reaching out to media contacts and strategists to manage the narrative. But the phrase, fake Duchess, had already taken hold in the public imagination. In the days that followed, the media frenzy intensified. Analysts dissected the interview, drawing connections between Danielle's words and Meghan's complicated journey from actress to royal to media figure. Some commentators framed the moment as a broader cultural reckoning, a challenge to the idea that titles and curated images can substitute for lived experience and genuine connection. Danielle's mic'd-up moment on national television became more than an interview clip. It became a cultural touchstone symbolizing authenticity's triumph over artifice. It was a turning point that forced Meghan Markle, and the world watching, to confront uncomfortable questions about identity, privilege, and the cost of public performance. Behind the scenes, away from the glaring studio lights and the roar of a live audience, the atmosphere was palpably different. Meghan Markle's presence backstage at late night with Seth Meyers was tense, marked by a mixture of anticipation, uncertainty, and, as would soon become clear, discomfort. According to multiple eyewitnesses with direct access to the green room that evening, Meghan had been quietly observing from a discreet corner, a few feet away from the large monitor broadcasting Danielle Brooks's interview live. What she saw unfolding was unlike anything she had prepared for. At first, Meghan appeared composed, her posture upright, her hands folded neatly in her lap, a practiced calm painted across her face. But as Danielle's words sharpened into their pointed critique, the phrase fake Duchess hanging in the air, something shifted. Sources describe Meghan's expression as tightening, her brows drawing together, lips pressed in a thin, controlled line. It was the look of someone trying to maintain poise while grappling with a sudden, unwelcome blow. An aide nearby reportedly leaned in and whispered softly, but the exact words were never disclosed. Whatever was said seemed to deepen Meghan's discomfort rather than soothe it. Shortly after Danielle's segment concluded, eyewitnesses say Meghan rose from her seat abruptly, an action that startled those around her. In an uncharacteristic move, she avoided the usual post-show gathering where guests mingle and answer questions. Instead, Meghan chose a more discreet path. Production crew members say she was escorted swiftly through a side exit, bypassing the throng of press and fans gathered outside the studio doors. This departure was surprising, even to those who knew Meghan's usual media-savvy routines. In prior appearances, she had often lingered, posing for photos, giving carefully crafted interviews, and managing every moment with precision. But that night, Meghan's retreat was quiet and swift, an exit that left many puzzled and speculating. Media insiders later reported that Meghan's team viewed Danielle's comments as a direct affront, one that cut deeper than typical late-night banter. The phrase, fake Duchess, was seen as a challenge to Meghan's carefully maintained identity and influence. This perceived challenge reportedly rattled Meghan in ways that went beyond professional discomfort. Privately, sources close to Meghan described her as feeling shaken and vulnerable after watching the interview. The high-profile critique hit during a period when Meghan was already navigating a delicate balance between public expectation and personal reinvention. Staff within Meghan's circle shared that this moment exacerbated existing anxieties. It reinforced fears that no matter the efforts to reshape her image, old perceptions and new critiques alike would continue to dog her. Adding to the tension, rumors circulated that Meghan's departure was not just an emotional response, but a strategic move advised by her team to avoid further media exposure that could amplify Danielle's words. By leaving early, Meghan sidestepped the post-show press scramble, where she would likely have faced pointed questions about the interview and her reaction. This strategy, while protective, also sparked criticism from some quarters. Commentators debated whether Meghan's exit was an admission of guilt, a sign of fragility, or simply a refusal to dignify an attack she felt was unfair. On social media, reactions ranged from sympathetic to scornful. Some users praised Meghan for showing restraint, arguing that engaging with Danielle's critique would only fuel negativity. Others suggested that the silence and absence spoke volumes, interpreting it as avoidance. Within the wider Hollywood community, the event became a topic of hushed conversation. Celebrities and insiders weighed in on the complexities of public personas being publicly dismantled. A recurring theme emerged: the heavy cost of living under relentless scrutiny. Meghan's reaction was emblematic of this burden, caught between defending oneself and knowing when to step back. While the world debated, Meghan retreated to a private space, away from cameras and microphones. In these moments, she reportedly confided in close friends and aides, expressing frustration at being targeted and grappling with how to respond moving forward. Some within her inner circle pushed for a robust public rebuttal, while others counseled patience and silence. Ultimately, Meghan chose to keep a low profile in the immediate aftermath, focusing on managing the damage behind closed doors. This choice, however, did little to quell the swirling media storm. Tabloids and news outlets seized on the narrative of Meghan's shaken composure, framing the incident as a public unraveling. Meanwhile, Danielle's comments continued to dominate online conversations, overshadowing other news. In the following days, Meghan's absence from the spotlight became conspicuous. Where once she might have made calculated appearances to reclaim the narrative, she instead remained mostly out of view. This period of silence left her supporters anxious and critics emboldened. The real-time reaction in the green room that night, therefore, marked a pivotal moment, not just a personal setback for Meghan, but a turning point in how the public and media perceived her ongoing story. It highlighted the fragile line celebrities walk between control and chaos, especially when confronted with voices that refused to flatter or shield them. As the dust settled, Meghan and her team were left to assess the damage and consider the next steps in an increasingly complicated journey toward reinvention. The moment Danielle Brooks uttered the words "fake Duchess" on national television, a digital tidal wave was unleashed. Across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit, social media users erupted in a frenzy of discussion, memes, and heated debate, transforming what was intended as a late-night interview segment into a cultural phenomenon. In mere minutes, Danielle's phrase became a trending hashtag, propelling her into the spotlight in a way few could have predicted. On Twitter, #FakeDuchess quickly climbed the trending charts, sustained for over 48 hours by millions of posts, retweets, and comments. The hashtag became a catch-all for critiques of Meghan Markle's perceived authenticity, with users dissecting her public persona, questioning her motives, and contrasting her with Danielle's unapologetic candor. The viral nature of the hashtag reflected more than just celebrity gossip. It tapped into a broader conversation about authenticity, privilege, and the performance of identity in public life. For many, Danielle's words encapsulated feelings they had long harbored but hadn't dared to voice publicly. The phrase "fake Duchess" became shorthand for a growing skepticism toward public figures who blend privilege with performative victimhood. TikTok, the platform known for its quick, viral content, exploded with reaction videos. Creators from all walks of life, from social justice advocates to comedians, produced clips replaying Danielle's statement, offering commentary, satire, and even heartfelt agreement. Hashtags like #RealTalk and #Authenticity started trending alongside #FakeDuchess, turning Danielle's moment into a rallying cry for honesty in celebrity culture. Reddit's discussion threads became deep wells of analysis and speculation. Fans and critics alike debated whether Danielle's comments were fair or cruel, diving into Meghan's past actions, public statements, and the broader implications of royal titles in modern society. Some threads morphed into virtual support groups, where users unpacked feelings of betrayal, disappointment, or admiration. Notably, Hollywood insiders and entertainment journalists took notice. Several trade publications published op-eds exploring how Danielle's candidness contrasted sharply with Meghan's increasingly scripted public appearances. One columnist wrote, "In a world where image is everything, Danielle Brooks reminded us that truth still cuts sharper than any crown." The viral impact extended beyond digital chatter. Mainstream news outlets worldwide covered the story, blending entertainment reporting with cultural critique. Headlines ranged from sensational, "Danielle Brooks dethrones Meghan Markle," and "The Duchess called out live on air," to analytical pieces probing the societal undercurrents beneath the spectacle. For Meghan Markle, the social media explosion was a double-edged sword. On one hand, she remained one of the most discussed public figures globally, but much of the attention now bore a critical, even hostile, tone. Public sentiment, once divided, began tilting toward skepticism. Analyzing the sentiment data from this period reveals a marked increase in negative mentions of Meghan, often tied to questions of authenticity, privilege, and perceived opportunism. This shift had tangible effects, with several of her projects experiencing slowed momentum as public interest cooled. Meanwhile, Danielle's popularity soared. Beyond the immediate viral moment, her social media following grew exponentially. Fans praised her bravery, authenticity, and refusal to conform to celebrity norms. She became a symbol for those craving realness in an industry often criticized for superficiality. Celebrities and influencers publicly voiced their support for Danielle. Some even shared personal stories of similar struggles with authenticity and image management, deepening the resonance of Danielle's words. The impact extended into professional opportunities. Agents and producers reached out to Danielle with new offers, recognizing her as not just a talented actress, but also a compelling voice for truth and representation. The contrast between Danielle's rising trajectory and Meghan's faltering public image became a focal point for cultural commentators. The narrative shifted from a simple celebrity spat to a broader reflection on how society values, or devalues, genuine experience versus curated personas. Social media became the battleground where this contest played out, with each tweet, post, and video shaping public opinion in real time. The explosion also sparked debates about the role of social media in celebrity culture. Some praised platforms for democratizing voices like Danielle's, allowing marginalized perspectives to challenge dominant narratives. Others warned about the dangers of mob mentality and the blurring lines between constructive critique and public shaming. In the midst of this digital maelstrom, Meghan's response was notably muted. Her social media accounts remained mostly silent, avoiding direct engagement with the controversy. This silence was interpreted in multiple ways, either as strategic restraint or as a sign of being overwhelmed by the backlash. In contrast, Danielle embraced the moment. She engaged with fans, shared messages about the importance of authenticity, and used her newfound platform to advocate for mental health awareness and empowerment. The social media explosion following Danielle's interview was a defining moment in the unfolding saga between these two women. It marked the point where public perception decisively shifted, with authenticity becoming the currency by which reputations were judged. For Meghan Markle, it was a wake-up call. For Danielle Brooks, a breakthrough. The immediate aftermath of Danielle Brooks's pointed remarks on Late Night with Seth Meyers unleashed a storm of public opinion, fractured and fiercely divided. What started as a viral moment soon escalated into a cultural debate, pitting fans, critics, media pundits, and casual observers against one another in a clash of values, loyalties, and perspectives. On one side stood those who hailed Danielle as a brave voice of authenticity, a truth-teller unafraid to challenge the carefully constructed facade that Meghan Markle had cultivated over years. These supporters viewed Danielle's comments not as an attack, but as a necessary reckoning with issues of privilege, identity, and the use of royal titles in modern discourse. Finally, someone said what many were thinking, read one popular tweet that was widely shared. Another user wrote, "Danielle Brooks just reminded us all that crowns don't make you a queen. Character does." Communities that had long wrestled with themes of representation and authenticity embraced Danielle's critique as a moment of empowerment. For many Black women and allies, Danielle's words resonated deeply with personal experiences of having to prove their worth beyond superficial labels and external validations. Social media groups and forums lit up with conversations dissecting the cultural significance of the phrase, fake Duchess. These discussions often expanded beyond Meghan to critique broader systems of privilege and performative allyship. The moment became a flashpoint for conversations about who gets to claim authority in conversations about race, gender, and power. In the media, several respected commentators praised Danielle for her candor and her refusal to mince words. Some op-eds framed the incident as emblematic of a larger shift in cultural expectations, where audiences demand authenticity and transparency from public figures and reject those who hide behind titles or curated images. Yet, the reaction was not universally positive. A significant portion of the public and media figures criticized Danielle's remarks as overly harsh, personal, and potentially damaging. These detractors argued that Meghan had faced intense scrutiny and racism, and that Danielle's comments added unnecessary fuel to a fire of public judgment. Everyone deserves compassion, argued one widely shared Facebook post. This moment only deepens divisions and distracts from the real issues. Others saw Danielle's words as unprofessional, accusing her of leveraging a viral moment for personal gain and sensationalism. Some celebrity commentators suggested that the incident was orchestrated, designed to boost ratings or social media engagement rather than address genuine concerns. The debate spilled over into late-night talk shows, podcasts, and news panels, where hosts and guests dissected the implications. Some framed the moment as a classic clash of authenticity versus image. Others saw it as a symptom of deeper fractures within celebrity culture and the public's complicated relationship with fame. Among Meghan's supporters, the incident was a rallying point. Online campaigns emerged to defend her, emphasizing her philanthropic work, her resilience, and the pressures of being a biracial woman navigating both royal tradition and Hollywood. High-profile allies came forward with statements of support, highlighting the importance of empathy and nuance when discussing public figures who have faced systemic challenges. Simultaneously, the polarized reaction reflected broader societal divides. Issues of race, class, and gender intersected with discussions about media representation and celebrity accountability, creating a complex web of perspectives that often clashed. For many, the incident became less about the individuals involved and more about the cultural narratives they symbolized. Danielle represented raw, unfiltered truth and the struggle for recognition based on merit. Meghan embodied the tension between inherited status and personal identity in the modern age. This division also revealed generational differences. Younger audiences, particularly on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, tended to side with Danielle's candidness and the call for authenticity. Older demographics, familiar with royal traditions and more accustomed to diplomacy in public discourse, leaned toward defending Meghan or criticizing the harshness of the remarks. The media coverage reflected this split. Tabloids often sensationalized the conflict, painting it as a personal feud with salacious headlines, while more serious outlets explored the societal questions raised. Amid this cacophony, both Danielle and Meghan found themselves under intense public scrutiny. Danielle's refusal to apologize won her admirers, but also intensified backlash. Meghan's relative silence was interpreted variously as strength, weakness, or strategic avoidance. Surveys conducted in the weeks following the incident showed a notable shift in public opinion regarding Meghan Markle. Favorability ratings dipped, with many citing questions about her authenticity and media management. Meanwhile, Danielle's public image soared, with many seeing her as a refreshing voice of honesty in an industry often criticized for superficiality. The divided public reaction underscored the complexities of navigating celebrity, identity, and truth in the digital age. It revealed how a single moment could become a mirror reflecting societal hopes, frustrations, and conflicts. For viewers and participants alike, the event was a reminder that behind every headline and viral clip lie layers of human emotion, cultural history, and evolving values. As the dust settled, one thing was clear. The conversation sparked by Danielle Brooks's words was far from over. It had only just begun. In the hours and days following Danielle Brooks's devastating remarks, Meghan Markle's public relations team faced what could only be described as a full-scale crisis. The viral spread of the phrase, "fake Duchess," and the ensuing media frenzy forced her handlers into an emergency mode of damage control, scrambling to contain the fallout and preserve Meghan's carefully cultivated image. Immediately after the interview aired, Meghan's PR advisors convened to strategize a response that could halt the growing negative narrative. Internal communications, later leaked to several outlets, revealed a frantic effort to redirect the conversation away from Danielle's critique and onto Meghan's philanthropic efforts and personal resilience. The initial public statement was carefully worded, calculated to sound dignified, and composed while avoiding any direct reference to Danielle's comments. The statement praised Meghan's ongoing commitment to charitable causes and emphasized her dedication to empowering marginalized communities. It read, in part, Meghan Markle remains focused on her mission to uplift voices that have long been silenced and is grateful for the continued support from her fans and partners. Though polished, the statement was criticized by media analysts as vague and lacking the assertiveness expected from someone under such intense scrutiny. Public relations experts noted that the avoidance of directly addressing the fake Duchess claim left the door open for continued speculation and criticism. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Meghan's team was working overtime. Communication strategists reached out to key media outlets and influencers, attempting to secure positive coverage and interviews that could shift public focus. One leaked memo instructed spokespeople to highlight upcoming projects, charitable initiatives, and Meghan's role as a mother, framing her as relatable and grounded. Despite these efforts, the public mood was hard to shift. Social media chatter remained overwhelmingly dominated by Danielle's viral moment, and debates about Meghan's authenticity persisted. The hashtag #FakeDuchess continued to trend sporadically, keeping the issue alive in public discourse. Adding to the pressure was the reported reaction within the royal family and Meghan's closest allies. Sources suggest that Buckingham Palace maintained a deliberately neutral stance publicly, but privately expressed concern over the negative attention. Royal aides were said to be relieved the criticism did not come from within the family, but were nevertheless worried about the damage to the monarchy's image by association. Some insiders claimed Prince William found the entire situation entertaining and indicative of Meghan's ongoing struggles to fit within royal expectations and public scrutiny. Prince Harry, however, was reportedly furious, not just at Danielle's comments, but at Meghan's repeated missteps in public relations that continued to draw negative attention. Back at Archewell, Meghan's charitable foundation, the ripple effects were palpable. Staff turnover increased as some employees reportedly left due to the growing media storm and internal uncertainty about the foundation's future direction. Morale was said to be low, with a pervasive sense of anxiety about Meghan's public standing. Netflix, which had previously signed lucrative deals with the Sussexes, began to reassess its commitments. Industry insiders speculated that executives were concerned about the negative press overshadowing their partnership, prompting internal discussions about shelving or postponing planned projects. In an attempt to regain control, Meghan's team accelerated the launch of a new social impact campaign, designed to spotlight grassroots organizations and frame Meghan as an advocate for real change. Yet, critics quickly dismissed the campaign as tone-deaf and disconnected from the realities of the controversy, further fueling skepticism. The PR battle extended beyond traditional media. Digital teams monitored sentiment analysis in real time, adjusting messaging and engaging with supporters to counteract negative narratives. Despite these efforts, the fake Duchess label proved sticky, with many online communities refusing to let the issue fade. In public appearances following the incident, Meghan maintained a polished composure but was notably reserved. She avoided direct questions about Danielle's comments or the controversy, often steering conversations toward broader themes of empowerment and healing. This silence was a double-edged sword. Some praised Meghan for refusing to dignify the critique with a response, viewing her restraint as strength. Others interpreted it as an inability to confront the issue head-on, further eroding confidence in her authenticity. The cumulative effect of these dynamics was a noticeable decline in Meghan's public favorability. Polling data indicated a drop in positive perceptions, with growing numbers questioning her motivations and sincerity. For Meghan's PR team, the challenge was clear: how to rebuild a fractured narrative amid a relentless media landscape and an increasingly skeptical public. The damage control efforts illustrated the complexities of managing celebrity reputations in the digital age, where a single moment can ripple across platforms and demographics, shaping perceptions in unpredictable ways. As the crisis unfolded, Meghan's team grappled with balancing image repair, personal privacy, and long-term brand strategy. What was once a confident public figure now found herself navigating a minefield of criticism and doubt. And at the center of it all stood Danielle Brooks's simple but powerful declaration, proof that sometimes the most effective damage control is no control at all. In the days following the viral explosion of her remarks on Late Night with Seth Meyers, Danielle Brooks found herself at the center of a maelstrom, both of adoration and backlash. Yet, despite the media storm swirling around her, Danielle chose a path many expected she might avoid. She broke her silence, but not with regret or retreat. Instead, she doubled down on her message, standing firm and unapologetic. The silence following such a public moment is often deafening for celebrities. Many would seize the opportunity to issue a carefully crafted apology or clarify their intentions to stem negative fallout. Danielle, however, took a different route. Within 48 hours of the broadcast, Danielle took to Instagram Live, a platform where authenticity reigns and polished PR scripts are stripped away. She greeted thousands of viewers with her characteristic warmth, but quickly made it clear that this was not going to be a typical fan Q&A. Addressing the controversy head-on, Danielle stated, "I've read the headlines, the hot takes, the she should apologize comments. But here's the truth, I don't regret speaking up. Not for a second. Because it's time we stop pretending that crowns and titles make people who they really are." Her voice was steady, her conviction unmistakable. Danielle didn't mince words. She spoke about the importance of owning one's truth and refusing to bow to pressure from media cycles or public expectations. "I'm tired of people fronting like they're something they're not," she said. "It's exhausting, and it does a disservice to those of us who have had to fight for every inch of respect." The live stream quickly amassed tens of thousands of viewers, with comments flooding in from supporters praising Danielle's courage and honesty. Many viewers expressed relief at hearing a celebrity reject the culture of manufactured images and media manipulation.